I was just a regular man from a Sikh family, raised with faith, tradition, and the deep respect for the teachings of the gurus. Life had its challenges, but I carried on, content in my beliefs. But one day, everything changed in a heartbeat. It was a hiking trip in the mountains, a place I loved for its peace and beauty. I was walking along a narrow cliffside trail when the ground gave way beneath my feet. One moment I was steady, the next I was falling, tumbling down the rocks, the wind screaming in my ears, pain exploding through my body. I remember hitting the ground, blackness swallowing me whole. I was sure it was the end. But then, something incredible happened. I felt myself lifted not by hands but by a presence so pure and powerful I can't fully describe it. And there, before me, was a light so bright it hurt my eyes. Within it, a figure stood glowing, glorified, and full of love. It was Jesus. I had heard stories, seen pictures, but this was real. Not a man but a light, a glory that shone through everything dark and broken inside me. He looked at me with eyes full of mercy and said nothing, just offered his hand. As I reached out, the pain faded. I was no longer on that cliff. I was somewhere else, somewhere peaceful, surrounded by warmth and endless light. And I knew, without a doubt, that my life would never be the same again. As the darkness of the fall slipped away, I found myself enveloped in a light unlike anything I had ever seen on earth. It wasn't harsh or blinding in a painful way. Instead, it was warm, inviting, and pure light that seemed to reach deep into my very soul and wash away every fear, every pain, every regret I had carried. Standing in that light was a figure, not a man in the way I had imagined, but something transcendent, radiant beyond description. His face was kind yet powerful, and his eyes seemed to hold the weight of all creation, full of compassion and mercy. I immediately knew this was Jesus Christ, the one I had heard of but never truly believed I would meet. In that moment, all my lifelong beliefs and doubts clashed inside me. I had been raised in the Sikh faith, proud of its teachings, but now confronted by this undeniable presence that radiated love and truth. I wanted to run, to hide in the familiar, but my body and soul were still suspended in that glorious light. Jesus didn't speak words aloud, but his presence communicated everything I needed to know. I felt his sorrow over the pain and confusion in my life, his forgiveness for my mistakes, and his invitation to something greater, a life filled not just with faith, but with love and purpose that transcended all I had known. I remembered my family, my community, the traditions I had honored all my life. I wondered how this experience would change me, and whether I could ever return to them with what I now carried inside. And then, slowly, the light began to recede. I felt myself being drawn back toward my body, to the world I had left moments ago. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I was filled with a strange peace and a new understanding that whatever came next, I was not alone. As the light faded, Jesus' presence lingered within me like an eternal flame, a promise that I would carry for the rest of my life. I awoke on the rocky ground, my body battered but alive. Around me, the world was the same, but I was forever changed. When I came back to consciousness, the pain in my body was overwhelming broken bones, bruises, and a pounding headache. The rocky ground beneath me was cold and unforgiving. The world looked the same, yet I felt profoundly different. Something inside me had shifted in that moment between death and life. I struggled to move, to call for help, but my voice was weak. Eventually, a hiker passing by found me and called for emergency services. As I was taken to the hospital, I kept thinking about the light, the presence of Jesus, and the peace that had filled me in those timeless moments. Doctors later told me how close I had come to death. They explained that the fall could have easily ended my life, that the fact I was alive was nothing short of a miracle. But for me, the true miracle was the experience itself, the unexplainable encounter with a love so powerful it rewrote my understanding of faith and life. The hours and days that followed were a whirlwind of treatments, pain medication, and physical therapy. Yet, amid all this, my mind kept returning to that radiant figure and the promise that I was never alone. But there was a struggle growing inside me too. I was a Sikh man raised with traditions and teachings that had shaped my identity and my family's expectations. How would I reconcile this new spiritual experience with everything I had been taught? In the quiet moments, I wrestled with questions that had no easy answers. Was I betraying my faith? Would my family understand? Could I carry this experience silently? Or was I meant to share it? The weight of these questions felt as heavy as my injuries, and I knew the journey ahead would be as challenging as my recovery from the fall. In the weeks following my recovery, something profound was happening inside me that no medicine or therapy could touch. While my body was healing, my spirit was undergoing a transformation that I struggled to explain even to myself. I found myself drawn to quiet moments of reflection, to questions about life, death, and what lay beyond. Despite my upbringing, I began to wonder if the Jesus I had seen was more than a vision, if he was real, alive, and reaching out to me specifically. But this was complicated. My family's faith and community traditions were deeply rooted in Sikhism, and I didn't want to cause conflict or alienate those I loved. So, I chose silence. I kept the experience to myself, carrying the memory like a secret flame. I prayed quietly, sometimes uncertain of how to pray, but desperate for guidance. I read about Christianity cautiously, trying to understand what this new path might mean without betraying my roots. The more I wrestled, the clearer one thing became. My life had been forever changed, and I couldn't pretend otherwise. Little by little, my old doubts gave way to a new hope, a hope that transcended religion or labels. It was a hope anchored in the love and peace I had felt in that glorious light. But even as I grew in this silent faith, the tension inside me grew too. How long could I keep this to myself? How long before I had to choose a path to speak or to stay silent? Each day, the presence of that radiant Jesus burned brighter inside me, quietly calling me to a destiny I was only beginning to understand. As the days turned into months, I lived a double life. To the world, I remained the son, brother, and member of a Sikh community, attending ceremonies and upholding traditions out of respect and love. But inside, my heart was quietly reaching toward the light I had seen in that near-death moment. I found solace in early morning meditations, but now they felt different. Instead of seeking peace through familiar chants, I sought it in whispered prayers to the Jesus I had encountered. I prayed for strength, for understanding, and for courage to live authentically, even if it meant standing apart. Despite my fears, I noticed subtle changes in myself. Old wounds, resentment, anger, confusion began to soften. Compassion grew where judgment had lived. And slowly, a deep peace settled into my soul, one that no circumstance could shake. Yet the question remained, should I share this journey? Could I bring this new faith into the open without fracturing the bonds I held dear? Or was this calling something I needed to keep hidden for now? Sometimes in the quiet moments I felt the answer. Faith was personal and sacred, not always needing to be shouted from rooftops. For now, my path was one of quiet transformation, living a changed life in silence, but with a heart full of hope. The Jesus who met me in that radiant light was no longer just a vision. He was the steady presence walking beside me, even in the shadows. Living with this hidden faith was not easy. I faced moments of loneliness and isolation. Sometimes I felt torn between loyalty to my family's traditions and the compelling truth I had experienced. The fear of rejection, misunderstanding, or even being labeled a traitor weighed heavily on me. I struggled to explain to myself what it meant to follow Jesus, while still respecting the Sikh teachings that shaped my identity. At times, I questioned if this quiet faith was enough, or if I would ever find the courage to be open about it. Work, family gatherings, and community events often reminded me of the path I once walked and the one I now felt drawn toward. Yet, with every challenge, the presence of that glorious light from my near-death experience gave me strength to persevere. Prayer and reflection became my refuge. I would sit quietly and remember the moment Jesus reached out to me, how his love was unconditional, his mercy infinite. That memory was a shield against doubt and fear. Though my faith was quiet, it was deepening. I was growing in ways I never imagined possible, preparing for a day when I might fully embrace the calling on my life. Eventually, the quiet faith inside me grew too strong to keep hidden, but I didn't announce it loudly or seek attention. Instead, I chose a path of gentle transformation, changing my heart and actions quietly while honoring the relationships and culture I cherished. I began to read the Bible in secret, discovering stories that resonated deeply with what I'd seen. The teachings of love, forgiveness, and grace offered answers to questions I hadn't dared to ask before. I sought out Christian friends discreetly, longing for guidance and fellowship without risking my family's trust. Slowly, my lifestyle reflected my inner change. I practiced compassion more intentionally, forgave more freely, and found peace in the presence of the one who had saved me during that fall. Though I still participated in some Sikh traditions, my heart belonged elsewhere. The moment came when I felt ready to share my journey not in a public declaration, but in quiet conversations with those closest to me. Some were confused, some hurt, but a few listened with open hearts. It was a difficult and delicate process, but one I approached with patience and love. My conversion wasn't marked by fanfare, but by a deep, personal commitment to live in the light of the glorious Christ I had met. This quiet faith sustained me through challenges and gave me hope for the future. I knew my journey was just beginning, and that the love I encountered in that near-death experience would guide me every step of the way. Today, my faith remains a quiet but powerful force within me. I live with the memory of that fall and the radiant presence of Jesus that saved me etched into my soul. It's a reminder that no matter how unexpected or difficult life's journey, love and mercy can find us. Though my path has not been easy balancing tradition, family, and this new calling, I've embraced the peace that surpasses understanding. My transformation is ongoing, a daily choice to walk in faith, hope, and love. I don't share my story loudly or seek accolades. Instead, I live it quietly, letting my actions speak for the faith that sustains me. I help those around me, offering kindness and compassion rooted in the light I once saw. For anyone watching who feels lost, unsure, or caught between worlds, know this: no matter where you come from or what you believe, God's love is real. He meets us in our darkest moments, offering light and a new beginning. My near-death experience was not just a glimpse of glory, it was a call to live differently, to carry that light within, and to quietly shine it for others. This is my story, this is my faith, and I walk forward with hope.